Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest online event here at the University of California, Merced. My name is Ricky Hill, and I am your e-recruiter here at UC Merced, and what a great honor it is for me to be here with you tonight. We are so thrilled that you are spending some time with us as we talk about PIQs, so specifically tips on navigating the PIQs. And I have a question for you. Do you know what PIQ stands for? If you don't, you're going to be in for a treat. We are going to explain everything that you need to know about those personal insight questions. That is a PIQ. Before we get started, let me give you a couple of quick Zoom reminders. If you need to adjust your audio settings, you can do that in the lower left corner of your screen. If at any point you would like to adjust the size of your window, click on View Options in the upper portion of your screen. Lastly, and most importantly, we are going to hold back some time for you tonight at the end of our presentation so that we can get to your questions. Likely, we will answer quite a few of those throughout the presentation, but there might be some that you definitely want to get answered tonight. So use that Q&A button on your screen, click that, send that question our way, and we are fully staffed behind the scenes as well as on screen tonight to get to those questions. Just know that we will be hanging on to those until the end of our event tonight. Once again, my name is Ricky Hill, the e-recruiter here at UC Merced. At this time, let's go ahead and get this party started as I hand things over to my friend, Tim.
Thank you, Ricky. Hello, everyone, and welcome. So delighted to have you all here with us this evening. My name is Tim Ford. I serve as a senior admissions advisor. My position is regionally based in Northern California. So for those of you who are with us this evening, joining us, if you happen to reside in the Northern California counties in that region, I am your point of contact for any questions that you may have, but we have wonderful admission advisors throughout the entire state of working with you, as well as those who are working for students who are joining us from out of state. We're going to jump right into the presentation. We're going to cover quite a bit this evening. And here's a bit of our outline. We're going to go over PIQ basics, the purpose of the PIQs, on the UC application, of course. We're going to also go through the 8 questions. I'm going to provide you with some tips and tricks, things to consider, things to avoid. And then finally, we're going to have a Q&A with myself, as well as those questions that are being answered behind the scene. All right. So first of all, the application to the UC. There's only one application that our students are required to fill out, and the application opens every year, August 1st. And we open the application early to allow ample time for our students to start working on their application. It's a pretty exhaustive process to go through, so as much time as you need to start working on different sections, we definitely open it early on every year to allow for that. The submission period, however, is between October 1st all the way through November 30th. November 30th, 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is a hard deadline. So that is the submission period. And you want to make sure that you do submit your UC application between that time period. At UC Merced, we also have the opportunity to offer a spring enrollment for students who wish to enroll not in the fall, but at a later time. So our application period for those who are applying for our spring term typically will fall between the month of July 1st all the way through the 31st. And that is our hard deadline for our spring term. There's only one UC application that you're going to be filling out. It is good for all 9 campuses. We definitely encourage you to apply broadly when applying to the UCs. Each campus that you apply to does require an $80 application fee. If it will be $95 if you are an international applicant. Fee waivers are available and are embedded within the UC application itself. And for students who qualify for a fee waiver, you will be granted up to 4 campuses for free. Each campus that you decide to apply to beyond that 4th campus, you will be responsible for the $80 application or $95 application fee at that point. So we definitely have information on how to access the UC application on the website, admissions.ucmerced.edu. With apply will take you directly to that area. So I'm going to jump into the PIQ basics, the personal insight questions. This is by far my favorite part of the UC application. It's a chance for us and myself as an advisor to really get to know who the applicant is, whose application I am reading. So for first year students, you'll have 8 questions to choose from. You'll need to respond to 4 of the 8 questions. No more than 4, no less than 4. You basically have a wider opportunities to choose which ones best represent who you are to us. If you're joining us this evening and you are a transfer applicant, there is 1 required question that you'll need to address, and then you'll respond to 3 of the 7 remaining questions of your choice at that point. Each response is limited to 350 words. Now 350 words comes up pretty quickly, I would say. So again, you want to make sure that you're answering the questions because these are considered personal insight questions. I'm going to go into more detail about what to do with these responses and what not to do. And each question that you choose, which questions you choose, I should say, is entirely up to you. But you should select questions that are most relevant to your own unique experience with us and best reflects who you are to us. So that's the PIQ basics. Now we're going to jump into the purpose of the PIQs. This is really a chance for you to tell who you are, your story. The UC application allows you to share as much information about not just your academic experience, your history there, but also your activities, your honors that you've received, special awards you've received, leadership qualities. And this is a chance for you to really enhance and go into more depth about those additional achievements. It allows you to also identify your voice and what makes you a unique person to the UC. And it's also an opportunity to add depth and further highlight other sections of the application, as I briefly mentioned. So if you want to go into more detail about a special award you received, you'll have an opportunity to do so within the PIQ based on which prompt you select. It also allows you to cover what's important to you. Again, this is your voice. How do you think? You know, grades and courses definitely help us understand how well you work, but the PIQs are there to really help us understand how you think. And so how you address certain questions, how you answer those, what thought process you put into answering those questions are going to be very key when reviewing the application. And also one thing to note is that we don't compare you to other students. So when you're applying to the UCs, you're not going to be compared with a student from your school, or nor will you be compared with students from other schools outside of the one that you actually attend. We only review you within the context of your own individual experience and your own individual environment. So no two students are ever going to be compared to one another throughout this process. So again, let's jump into the prompts. There are 8 questions, as I mentioned earlier. So question number 1, describe an example of your leadership experience in which you have positively influenced others, helped resolve disputes, or contributed to group efforts over time. So of course, in this question, you actually will have an opportunity to select one of those 3 areas to focus in on, if not all 3, what applies specifically to you. But this question is really aimed towards understanding you taking on leadership positions, roles, whether it be in school, whether it be outside of school. Maybe you hold a job and you have to conduct leadership qualities there. Or perhaps maybe at home, you are conducting leadership with your parents or your siblings or what have you. So again, the main key areas to really focus on within this question is leadership, and then choosing one of those 3 areas to focus in on. Number 2, every person has a creative side, and it can be expressed in many ways: problem solving, original and innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. Describe how you express your creative side. So I really want to get to know more about your experiences, if you have a special talent that you possess, if you are involved in the arts or what have you. Maybe you're not involved in the arts, but maybe you have other creative elements that defines who you are. Again, it's more about not just stating what that particular talent is, but going more into depth about how it's allowing you to solve problems and using key examples of problem solving in that particular arena. So again, it's just more going into a little bit depth. Don't just focus on the talent itself, but talking about how it actually has been addressed and how it's impacted others, how it's impacted you, maybe it's influenced others. So you want to touch upon those key areas. Number 3, what would you say is your greatest talent or skill? And how have you developed and demonstrated that talent over time? And this can be pretty much anything. Maybe your talent is being a strong leader. Providing us examples of how you've led others. And what are those outcomes? That's very important to also indicate within this particular question. Number 4, describe how you have taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity or worked to overcome an educational barrier you have faced. So with this one, you really want to emphasize more so about you going above and beyond and really thinking outside the box, taking those leaps of faith. And then if you had any educational barriers along the way, how did you overcome those? How did you persevere through that? How did you show determination? Prompt number 5, describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? Very similar to the last question. Again, this is an opportunity for you to showcase perseverance, determination. It's not so much about what the challenge is itself, but talking about more so about the steps that you have done to overcome it. Maybe you're still overcoming it, and that's okay. But it's important that you demonstrate that information and share that information with us. Talking about if you have overcome it, and it's something that you feel that you can overcome in the future. So those are some ideas to think about when addressing a specific question. Think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you have furthered this interest inside and or outside the classroom. So maybe you have a strong affinity towards physics or computer science courses, and it's inspired you to either pursue majoring in one of those areas, or maybe it's persuaded you to pursue a career goal in that area. So it's really going further and talking about what the outcome is going to be more so and how it's inspired you in the meantime. What have you done to make your school or community a better place? Again, maybe you ran for office, maybe you took on a job. Maybe you worked with your local community officials. Maybe you worked in school, maybe it inspired you to become student body president, for example. So think about those ways if you decide to choose this particular question, how it's been developed and how it's influenced others. Maybe there were outcomes, maybe you've made change. Perhaps you were an agent of change. So that's something to definitely consider. And then finally, number 8, beyond what has already been shared in your application, what do you believe makes you a strong candidate for admission to the University of California? So this will be a wonderful opportunity for you to just really touch upon another key example that helps you stand out to us as a whole. Now, there is a required question for my transfer applicant, as I mentioned earlier on, that you are required to answer. We don't have that question listed here, but it definitely is related to how have you best prepared to transfer into the major in which you're going to be pursuing, and talk about your preparation as such. You'll be able to see the personal insight questions in their entirety. We're going to have one of my chatters in the background, drop a link for the personal insight questions in the chat for you to access these questions. Tips and tricks. So the personal insight questions, PIQ, again, is an opportunity to provide information and context that are typically not found in another part of the application itself. It's a chance for you to use your own natural voice when writing. When we're reviewing your application, specifically the personal insight questions, we're pretty much reviewing for content, not grammar or writing style. So these are titled personal insight questions. They are not titled personal statements. So the thing is, these are not designed to be essays. They're just meant to be quick responses. And if you can remember earlier on, I indicated that you have 350 word max to respond to each of the questions. So you have to get straight to the point in your responses. I like to encourage you to use a lot of I statements, my statements when writing on your responses. giving details and specific examples. So really going back and kind of delving into maybe like 1 or 2 examples that supports the information that you're sharing within your response. Write in stages and get feedback. One of the things I like to always encourage students to do is to perhaps write your responses in a Word document, have those proofread, have them read back to you. Do you like what you hear as you're hearing what you wrote? And then get that feedback. And then once you're ready and you like what you hear, you can then copy and paste your responses into the UC application. There is no best topic or perfect response. Many times we get the question, how do I stand out? What's the best approach? There is no rule with how you should respond to these. One rule, however, I will say is that, again, this is your voice, this is who you are. It's not an essay. So don't think of this as a creative writing sample, but more so about just answering a question. I like to use the example that this is an interview on paper. So think about how you would respond to questions that are being asked of you if you are applying, say, to a job. You only have a limited amount of time with the interviewer. So you want to get as much about who you are across and your point across as quickly as possible in those few moments that you have with the interviewer. So think about that same method and that same approach when responding to the personal insight questions. Get your point across as quickly as possible. Avoid repetition. Again, we don't really want to see repetition of the same story that's happening that may have been answered elsewhere in another question. So you definitely want to avoid that. Give us new information that we cannot find in any other section of the application. So again, it's pretty much giving examples of one particular area and then maybe describing another element of your life and who you are with us in another question. And then finally, be authentic, be yourself. Again, this is your voice. I know it's very difficult for us to talk about ourselves, but we really want you to be authentic and share as much information about who you are with us as much as possible. Okay, so those are some cool tips and tricks to consider. Things to avoid. Don't feel that you have to use the entire 350 words to respond to the question. If your responses happen to come up a little shorter than that, I should say, as long as you've answered the question, you're golden. But again, it's important that you do answer the questions as they are presented to you. Do not talk about one campus. So the UC application is only one application. As I mentioned, you can apply to as many different campuses as such, but each campus will receive the same application, which means they're going to receive the same personal insight responses. So I don't want you to say that my dream has always been to attend the University of California, Merced, and then another campus will be reading that, or vice versa. So what you can say is, my dream has always been to attend the University of California. That way you keep it open-ended. You're not hurting anyone's feelings. But again, you don't want to mention a specific campus in your responses. Do not use acronyms. One thing to note is that if you have a club or organization, or maybe you've been involved in a special project that has an acronym, initially spell out the entire title of that particular company or what have you, and then maybe in parentheses, indicate the acronym afterwards, and then later on, you can then refer to the acronym. But we need to know initially what you're talking about, because many times we may not know what a specific acronym stands for. So give us the full context of the title of the organization that you've been involved in. Do not use quotes or song lyrics. Again, these are not essays. So we've always heard people sometimes writing, when I wake up in the morning and the sun rays beam across my forehead and the sound of birds come singing like a symphony, I have this epiphany. Or you may start off with a quote. We want you to avoid doing so. Don't feel that you have to create an eye-grabbing statement to catch our attention. You already have our attention with the application that you submitted. So again, just answer the questions. It's not a writing sample. It's not a creative writing sample. And you should not treat it as such. Most of the responses focus on the story or setting the scene, where you should instead focus on how the story has impacted you. So again, don't give us fluff. Don't talk too much about the past, but talk about more so how certain things have impacted you. It is not a creative writing sample. It's not about how poetic you are. It's about who you are. And it's not an essay. So don't think about you have to have a beginning, middle, and end per se. Just again, I'm going to keep emphasizing the importance of this. Answer the questions as if they are interview type questions. It is not a vocabulary quiz. So don't feel that you have to use all this fluff and this unique language to get your point across. Be authentic, be yourself. Use a lot of I statements, use a lot of my statements. Now, it's important that you share as much information about who you are within the context of the personal insight questions, as well as through the activity section. Now, anything that you leave off the application that defines who you are, if you leave it off the application, that's considered a missed opportunity. We want to be able to add value to your application. So talk about yourself, talk about your accomplishments, talk about your goals, talk about the challenges and how you overcome those challenges. But again, you're going to select the 4 that best defines and represents who you are to us as an applicant. Now, there are also additional comment sections that are found in 2 places in the UC application. One typically will follow the academic section of the UC application, and the other will follow the PIQ section. So the additional comment sections are typically used to allow an opportunity for you to share additional details that cannot be found elsewhere in your application. And one thing to note is that each response is limited to 550 characters. The additional comments are not an option to continue with a previous PIQ response. It is also not a place to respond to a 5th PIQ prompt. So with the PIQs, you only respond to 4, no more than 4, no less than 4. You have to respond to 4 of them. It is not a space to link to portfolios, resumes, videos, personal websites, social media, or any other external sources. We will not look at those. So if you supply us with a link or a website, guess what? It's just going to sit there. We're not going to even open it. So do not try to do that within the additional comments section. It is not an opportunity to try to impress the admission reader by posting a short story or poem. So again, we're not looking for personal statements. We're not looking for essays. We just really want to have more context of who you are as an individual and as an applicant. So an example for the additional comments following the academic history section, you can share information such as clarifying unusual grading systems or scales. Maybe your school graded you initially on a semester system, and then they switched halfway to a full term reporting system. So sharing that information with us. Explanations for being unable to enroll in a specific course. Maybe something happened that you couldn't get into a required course and you have to take it elsewhere, or you have to take it in the coming years. Changes in your curriculum, school changes or student name change. If you've taken a gap year, you have an opportunity to talk about what happened during that gap year with us. Also, you can use the academic section, additional comments section, to discuss any unusual decline in your grading performance. Perhaps something happened that doesn't reflect who you are as a strong applicant. So you can definitely state that information in this particular section there. Then the other area in which the additional comments section follows would be immediately following the PIQ section. So examples of comments that you can share in this particular section includes changes in your extracurricular activity events, changes in your family circumstances, any additional details about something mentioned only briefly in the application. You can kind of elaborate just a little bit in that section there. Also, additional personal responsibilities or environmental factors that may have played into your performance as an applicant. So again, the additional comments section is there to allow additional information. It is not there to apply or to respond to another PIQ section. So keep that in mind. Do not attempt to do that, and also do not use these sections to try to provide us with information that we don't even look at, such as those websites or portfolios, letters of recommendations. Again, that's not what those sections are used for. All right, so that pretty much follows the personal insight questions, tips of what to do, what not to do. At UC Merced, we want to leave you with some additional virtual information about who we are. We have a number of virtual events. We have admission presentations. We have application workshops that are coming up. We have application advising sessions that are one-on-one. You can also find us at numerous fairs, college fairs in your area. We also have campus tours. We operate campus tours Monday through Sunday on our campus specifically. We offer both in-person tours as well as virtual group tours. And there's also recorded live tours. So I definitely want to encourage you to scan the QR code that's provided on this slide here to learn more about our upcoming virtual events, in which we're going to be sharing more information. We're going to also have a repeat of this section in the month of November. So again, take a look at all our upcoming events that we have planned for you. And then we want to stay in contact with you. We want you to stay in contact with us. So we have social media outlets that you can definitely choose to follow. So we encourage that. Also, we encourage you to visit our website. You can actually visit the admissions website specifically and actually meet the advisor who is your contact within your own region. If you have general questions, you're more than welcome to email us at the email address listed here. You can contact us at the phone number that is also listed there as well. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Ricky.
Thank you so much, Tim. Wonderful job as usual. And this is a great opportunity for our audience to grab your smartphone, go ahead and take a quick picture of this slide, because look at all that fabulous information that you will definitely need later on. And what better way to do that than just to grab your phone, check out your photo album, and just grab that information right at your fingertips. Of course, we have a fantastic website as well. There are so many links there, and all of this wonderful information from tonight can also be found there. Although you might have to hunt a little bit depending on what you're looking for. So that's why we have these great events for you. We bring everything together and try to give you kind of the snippets that you need to know at this point in your journey. But we also have many more events coming up, as Tim mentioned. And so, Tim, can you go back to that slide too, the previous one, and we can give them a chance also to go ahead and scan that QR code. We'll leave it here for just a couple minutes in case you didn't get a chance to do that yet. All right, this is the time we promised you. This is the live question and answer session. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we have. So Tim, first question I see, what do people do when they get to the stage of actually submitting their application and then they're wondering what the status is? How do they go about checking that?
Great question. So once you submit the application, you're going to receive information on how to access your portal. Basically, the portal is going to be how we're going to communicate with you throughout the entire admissions process once your application has been submitted. I can give you an idea of the timeline. The application closes November 30th, 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We usually takes about 2 to 3 months to read through all those wonderful applications that have been submitted, reading through all those wonderful personal insight question responses that you've submitted, and helping us determine how each applicant is going to move through selection. Admission decisions will typically start, so you may just encourage you to be patient throughout that time period once you submit the application to when you'll hear back from us. In the meantime, we definitely encourage you to continue to check your emails, check your portals, I would say daily, because many times we'll reach out to you if we have any questions related to your application. And we typically will give you a few days to respond to that email. So it's important that you do check your emails, you check your portal, because if you miss days to respond, we will have to move on to the next applicant. It can definitely delay us making a decision on your application. So definitely make sure you check your emails daily once you submit the application. Again, the application is self-reported information. So it's important that you do fill it out as accurate as possible, because we will eventually verify it after you've been admitted to a campus and have decided to enroll. And during that time, we're going to then match what you've indicated to what your final transcripts will show. Okay.
Very good. And now when they do their admission application to the UC system, are they required to select a major at that point?
Great question. So you have the option to select a major. You also have an option to select an alternate major. Some campuses may have majors which are considered capped or impacted. So in turn, they would definitely encourage you to have an alternate major if you are not selected for that first major that you indicated. But if you're not quite sure what it is that you want to study, undeclared is a wonderful option, specifically at UC Merced. We give you ample time to explore, to learn, take different courses once you're here. You have until the end of your sophomore year to declare your major. So undeclared is not a negative. It is on the application as an option. So that means that it's something that's provided to you that you can definitely take advantage of.
Very good. And now on that same kind of line of thinking, they do pick a major, but what if they decide later on that they don't want to follow that anymore? What do they do?
It happens all the time. Once you are enrolled, you will have the option to petition to have a change in your major once you are a student. Some campuses may allow you to make a change even prior to enrolling the first day of classes. So it's important that you do reach out to each individual campus to find out what their practices are regarding that. But if you indicate a major on your application and you are admitted, specifically at UC Merced, we have been known to allow a one-time major change into a different major even before you enroll in classes the first day. Some majors, however, I will note, will require that you do complete at least one semester before a major change is allowed. So typically we see that happening a lot with engineering type majors. So if you've indicated that you are applying for biology, for example, and all of a sudden you decide, hey, I want to do computer science engineering, you may have to wait until after your first term is completed before that change is allowed.
Very good. And when in doubt, ask questions, especially once you're here. You will have all of the resources right at your fingertips in person. So
Yes.
There are so many of us on campus. And I promise you that if you, let's say you stop me while I'm walking down an academic pathway or a university plaza, and I don't know the answer, I promise you, I would know where to send you. And that is not just me. That is not unique just with Ricky Hill at UC Merced. That's with, that's with anybody, any place on our campus. We will not stop until we get you to the right place. So that goes also now, though. I mean, you can always reach out to us and we can drop into chat the link so that you can reach out to us and your specific advisor. So we can drop that over there as well. We have a great website for that. You'll see pictures of all the advisors so you can start connecting with people before you're even here in person. All right, we've got lots of questions coming in. Let's take a look. Oh, you know what? I want to mention to everyone that we are recording this event tonight. So if any of this information is something that maybe you'd like to go back to later, or if you have a family member or a friend that you think could benefit from it, we will be putting this recording up within a couple of days. The link is over in the chat box. So we have a YouTube channel and our handle there is life@UC Merced, just like it sounds. But if you go to that YouTube and you look for that, we have a lot of videos there. So if you're looking specifically for this one or maybe another one that's already passed, I suggest that you go to the events page and you will have a link there that says replay available. So for that, you can look over in the chat box. There's a link there for the events page. It's the same place that you went when you registered for this. And then you'll find all of those replay options for you there once we get to that point in putting those up online. All right, Tim, let's see. Another question. How do students apply for a fee waiver?
Great question. So the fee waiver is actually embedded within the UC application. There's a section of in the application when you're filling it out called the About You section. And in that section, we're going to be asking you questions about your family, the income levels. And the application will then determine based on the information that is provided if you happen to qualify for our fee waiver. So there's nothing that you need to do in addition to the UC application. It is embedded within the application. If it's determined that you do qualify for a fee waiver, you'll have an option before you submit the application to accept the fee waiver, which we encourage you to do. because if you accept the fee waiver, that will grant you up to 4 campuses for free. Now, many times with this fee waiver question, we also have questions related to, I didn't receive the UC application fee waiver. However, I qualified for an external fee waiver, say through the College Board, for example. If that is the case, we will be able to use those fee waivers as well. But again, you can only use one fee waiver. And the same scenario, if you happen to get the College Board fee waiver, for example, that will still grant you up to 4 campuses. You'll just need to have that fee waiver actually mailed in with your application fee. So typically you'll be given the option to pay by check. Once you're ready to submit your application payment, you'll select pay by check, and then you'll send in your fee waiver instead of a check, and we'll utilize it in that manner.
Very good. The next question, someone is asking, what exactly are we looking for in a UC admission application that really can make someone stand out?
Great question. So what's going to help you stand out is that you present yourself as fully as possible. So again, as I mentioned earlier on, if you leave anything off the application that defines who you are, that is important. Maybe you don't think it's important, but if it's something that kind of demonstrates who you are as a potential student, if you leave it off the application, we don't penalize you for that. It's just a missed opportunity. So again, you want to add as much information. You want to make sure you're addressing those personal insight questions to the fullness, but you're also utilizing the other sections of the application, such as the activities, the awards, and we're going to have a special webinar on the activities section in the next month or so as well. But also we're looking at a well-rounded student and a well-rounded applicant. So your grades are definitely important, but it's not just your grades. We take into account other factors. We look at the rigor of the courses that you were taking at your respective high schools. Are you challenging yourself? Are you going above and beyond the minimum requirements? Most of our students who are successfully admitted have exceeded the minimum requirements during selection. So really challenge yourself to go above and beyond whenever possible. And if you can't be as involved in activities, explain why you're not involved in those activities. Maybe you have other responsibilities, and guess what? Those other responsibilities may still be considered leadership. I always use the example, maybe you have to take care of a grandparent at home. Maybe you have to leave school to go home and take care of younger siblings. And you're not allowed and not able to take part in the track club, for example. That's still considered leadership because you're holding down qualities at home of taking care of others. So it's important that you share. It's important that you provide as much context as possible. It's all about context. And so share as much information, and all those are then utilized in the application selection cycle. There are 13 factors overall that the UCs utilize. So we take into account, like I mentioned, leadership, special awards, if you're involved in special activities or educational prep programs, those are all factored into your selection read. And every campus will select a little differently and independent of one another. So again, we want you to apply broadly to really increase your chances of being a much more competitive applicant.
Definitely. And we also want to remind you something that we mentioned earlier is that we don't compare student to student. So we want you to include all of your individual experiences, life experiences, whatever that might be, any adventures that you may have had or challenges. Sometimes the challenges might be more significant for you, depending on what those might be. I know I can think of a few of my own, and it was in those difficult times, or there's those areas of obstacles that by overcoming those, that's where I really gained some really solid experience. So just really look at everything as a whole picture. It's not just one individual thing. And I always like that example that you gave, Tim, about if you take care of younger siblings, that might limit your opportunities for other things. But really think about what that is. You're keeping other human beings alive. It's kind of a big deal. You want to mention those things. So just don't overlook anything is what we're trying to stress here, because something that may seem, maybe it's mundane to you because it's been what's been in your life forever, but maybe it's very different from someone else who's applying, and it really helps you stand out. So sorry to repeat some of that, but I think that's important to remember. We don't compare student to student. Everyone is an individual.
Right.
All right, let's move on to our next question here. Let's see, what haven't we touched on yet? Oh, when will they start finding out their decisions? We're jumping a little bit further ahead. We haven't even applied yet, but once they do, when will they start to hear back?
Yeah, so the UC start rolling out decisions usually in the month of March. And so during that time, once March hits, you'll start hearing from different campuses. Each UC campus will differ in terms of which week in March that they'll hear, but typically for first-year applicants, the month of March is when you'll hear back. For my transfer students in the room tonight, those are typically released starting in March, but also can run through April. Now, one thing to note is that once you've heard from a campus, you have ample time to review all your offers. If you apply for financial aid, you'll have opportunities to look at your financial aid award packages and then decide upon which campus you're going to be attending in the fall. May 1st is when you must decide, by May 1st is when you must decide which university you're going to be attending in the fall. For my transfer applicants, you actually have until June 1st to make up your final decision where you'll be attending. But for first-year applicants, the national day of decision for all universities is May 1st. So once you submit your application, we encourage you to just sit back, relax, explore private scholarships that are out there that you could apply for. We encourage you to do that. And again, make sure you do check your portals, your emails on a daily basis while you're waiting to hear back from us. Because again, sometimes we may be looking for something that we want clarification on, and we're going to reach out to you via email. And so it's important that you do respond in a timely manner once those emails are sent out.
Perfect. And Tim, can you advance to the next slide? We'll leave it on that contact slide for a while for the rest of our presentation here. So folks can, once again, if you haven't yet, go ahead and grab your smartphone, take a little photo of this so that you can reference it later on. And I have to always give a plug to TikTok. That is our newest and greatest social media channel. We've had that for about a year. We do offer giveaways there every once in a while. So you definitely want to subscribe, of course, to all of our channels. But TikTok, you might find that one the most appealing at this point. We are constantly pushing out videos every day almost, showing you a inside peek to campus life, student life, everything that we have going on. So don't miss out on those opportunities that are there. Take a quick picture for your future reference. That contact information is going to come in very helpful as well. And we can also, over in the chat, we will drop the link once again for how you can find out who your actual admission advisor is and what region that you're in and things of that nature. So we'll make sure that we drop that over there as well. Now, this event tonight is specific about PIQs, the personal insight questions. So let's kind of redirect back over there. So can people fill out the PIQs before submitting the application and then come back later on and edit those after they've thought about it for a bit?
Okay, great question. So the personal insight questions is part of the application itself. And once you submit the application, this is very important. It's important that you look everything over completely before you hit that submit button. Now, I like to encourage students to, again, as I mentioned earlier, to work on their PIQs first and foremost in an external document, such as a Word document. And that way you'll be able to assess the word count, have folks read it over, go through editing processes and what have you. And then once you like what you are reading, copy and paste that into the application. Now, once you submit the application, there are a few changes, but most of them are mostly you cannot make major changes to your application, including modifying or editing your PIQ responses. So again, this is why we open the application early every year, August 1st, to allow ample time for you as an applicant to work on the application and to give yourself plenty of time to look every key area over, your responses over. But again, once you submit that button, once you hit that submit button, you can no longer make changes to your UC application. You cannot make any changes to your PIQ responses. You cannot say, I forgot to add this activity. Those are no longer changes that you can make. The only changes that you are allowed to make would be if you happen to move, for example, or you change phone numbers or emails. Those slight modifications you can update, but typically those other major changes like your PIQ responses are no longer made changeable once the application has been submitted.
Very good. Then a follow-up about PIQs, which is perfect for tonight. Someone is asking if there's a specific reason why the additional comments area seems a little bit lengthier than the PIQs. Now, I know we talked about there's a specific word or character count. Maybe does that have something to do with it?
Yeah, so the PIQs is 350 words. The additional comments is 550 characters. So just be mindful of that. But again, that's your last chance to really explain or clarify certain situations that have been addressed that you feel needs additional clarification. But just be mindful that word counts are a little different than character counts. So just be mindful of that.
Perfect. And
in terms of why there's more, don't have a clear answer for that. It's just giving you more opportunity to share as much information that's not found elsewhere in the application and give you that additional opportunity to do so.
Very good. And so I know we mentioned that there are 8 PIQ questions, personal insight questions. In the additional comment section, that is different than the PIQ, correct? So it's not just an additional place to continue like ... from question number 8 and then continue there, correct?
Right. That is correct. We don't encourage that. It's just to use to share clarification on other areas of the application. So again, don't try to continue onward with one of your PIQs that you already responded to, because again, repetition is not allowed. And we definitely try to frown upon repetition. So again, don't use it for that. And also don't try to answer a 5th PIQ because we won't even look at it. So it's just more about clarification.
Perfect. Thanks, Tim. All right, so the next question. Is it okay to list relevant awards and honors in the comment section if we reach the word limit in the prompt? So I think that's kind of what we just talked about. They really need to make sure that they're mindful of those counts, right? So maybe use abbreviations if it's something that's obvious, or as you mentioned, they can use an acronym once they spell it out the first time to try and save some space, but use that additional comment area for something different.
Yeah, you're gonna use it for something different. Now with activities and awards, there is an actual activity section, which allows you the ability to talk about the activity and award that you received in that particular context, in that particular section of the UC application. And that is separate than the PIQ section. So you have that opportunity to explain areas there. And then your PIQs are just there to pretty much elaborate on those areas, the resume. I call it the resume section. So you can elaborate more clearly in the PIQ section. So you have the opportunity to really give us full coverage of the award that you received. But yes, I definitely encourage you to, if you spelled out a particular award that you received and it has an abbreviation, maybe give us like the name of it first, and then in parentheses following the name of it, give us the acronym or the abbreviation, and then you can then utilize the abbreviation as you continue to write further. So that way we know what it stands for initially.
And what section would be best for them to talk about internship experiences?
Great question. I also would allude to the activities section. That section allows you to list activities that you've been involved in, extracurricular involvement at school, but also there's work experience that's also listed there. Internships that you may have been exposed to. Now you are allowed to list in combination up to 20 activities. So that can be drawn across educational prep programs you may be involved in, volunteer opportunities, special awards you've received, extracurricular involvement, but you can list up to 20 of those in that particular section. But so your internship is going to fall in that section, typically under work experience, more so.
Very good. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to scroll through a little bit here and make sure we're not duplicating any, and I'm getting to a good mixture here. Okay, so in addition to the additional comment section, where would be the best place to talk about struggles that someone may have had with online learning? Or should they not mention that? Is that not something that's appropriate?
So online learning, that's something that is appropriate. If you've struggled, maybe you can mention that following the additional comments section, following the academic section. So again, keep in mind with the additional comments, there are 2 areas on the UC application. One that follows the academic history section, and then one that follows the PIQ sections. So any struggles can also be embedded within the personal insight question prompt that deals with academic challenges you may have faced. So I would encourage you to maybe utilize that particular question. If you struggled with online learning, talk about what those struggles are. How did you persevere through that struggle? But you could briefly mention it also in the additional comments section if it provides clarification more so to us in that area and you're utilizing it more so to discuss the scenario surrounding why the struggle occurred. So you have, again, ample opportunities, different sections to consider. The PIQ challenge response is a great area to address that, but also you can briefly mention it again in the additional comments following the academic history section.
Very good. Now let me look to the side here. We do have a question for transfer student that is coming in. So thank you for that from our transfer student applicant. So with the additional comments area, would that apply to high school and college, or is that only college information? And the example they're giving would be why my grades declined in high school. Would that be a good place for that?
As a transfer applicant, it can be. Typically, most students who are applying at the transfer level are usually vying for the junior level status. And so if you're applying as a junior, your high school record is at that time not considered in our review or selection. So we're just reviewing you based on the 2 years that you did accomplish at your community college or for your campus that you were attending. Now, at our campus, we do allow and offer an early transfer opportunity, which allows students to transfer even earlier than their junior year, at which point we do look at their meeting minimum requirements out of high school. So in a situation like that, you definitely can address the high school decline and what may have happened there to provide, again, context with that as it relates to your application of applying at that level. But typically, as most transfer students who are going for junior level status, high school records are no longer considered at that point. So you don't necessarily have to necessarily address it. You can talk about some of the challenges maybe you faced during the community college at that point. But if you feel that it's something that is important, that has a specific impact on even your performance at the community college level, even if it is a junior level and it has a significant impact, then yes, you definitely can address it in that situation as such. But again, any challenges, I always like to say, don't just mention the challenge, but talk about what steps you have taken to overcome those challenges. Have you overcome those challenges already? Or if it's something that you're still working through? So it's important that you do provide that context to us as well.
Wonderful. Next question. So this person is asking, when do we start reading the admission applications? And is there an advantage if they apply on the very first day that is open, or if they apply in the middle or towards the end? Is there any advantage?
So we get this question quite a bit. So the UCs, we do not participate in any special early action or early decision programs. So the submission period is October 1 through November 30th. Regardless of when you submit your application, there's not going to be any hierarchy that's going to be placed. So we don't start reviewing applications until after November 30th. So the student who applied earlier, don't think that that's going to give you an advantage of having your application read first. It's not. We're just going to group them all together after November 30th. So no real significance advantage in that situation. What I will say, however, is that we don't want you to stress through this process. We want you to enjoy life outside of your school as well, too. So if you happen to celebrate the holidays, for example, and the break that comes with that, maybe submitting your application earlier on will allow you to have a stress-free relaxation period during that time. And you're not stressing about, oh my gosh, I need to get my application in by November 30th or what have you. But again, there's no advantage or disadvantage for completing any time period. Just as long as you complete during that period, you're golden.
Yes, great advice about not procrastinating. I've mentioned this in other webinars. I am the queen of that. For me, something that you want to do. Sometimes life just gets away from us, but we give you an ample amount of time. So go ahead and start that thing early. Get your notes going so that you can have enough time to think about it, work with some of your teachers or classmates to get ideas, have people help you by proofreading it. Why wait, really, is what it is. And like I said, that's coming from someone who is used to waiting towards the end of things.
Yeah. And it also avoids those questions. Oh my goodness, what if the technology, something happens and the system crashes? It avoids that. So,
That was my
you
next
do yourself a favor. Yeah.
Yes, that was my next point. What if right now in the middle of this webinar, I lost my electricity? What if all of a sudden my internet went down? All of those things that none of us have any control over. And can you imagine if that was the last day? I mean, that would just be a panic right then, right? So go ahead and use that time that we give you. We do give that to you for a reason. So take full advantage of that. And then it just gives you a little bit of kind of a little breather there. But again, you have that full time to submit that. All right, let's see. We have a few more questions here and some more time. Let's see what else we've got. Let's see. Oh, can we give them a reminder of when they can apply?
Yes. So the application period, the application actually opens August 1st, but the submission period is October 1 to November 30th. So what that means is if you have started the application in August, and let's say you're very diligent about it and you completed your application in September, guess what? You have to just let your application sit there. You can't do anything at that point. You just have to wait until October 1st comes. Once October 1st comes, at that point, you can then go into your application and then hit the submit button. You cannot submit the application. So again, we give you ample time to work on it early on, but the actual submission period is October 1 to November 30th. And again, November 30th, 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 59 seconds. That is the deadline. That is a hard deadline. So again, that is your submission period to be aware of.
Very good. Another question here, and we are winding things down. So let's see. So this person is letting us know that they've heard many people tell them that by listing too many or a long list of activities can sometimes imply that maybe they're not focused on their academics. What's your opinion on that, Tim? Is there a such thing as having too many extracurriculars or too many outside activities to list?
It shows that you're very ambitious and well-rounded in many ways. But what I will say is, one of the things that we do want to encourage is sustained involvement in activities. So don't think that you have to go out and be involved in all these different activities to look good to us. If you've only been involved in maybe 1 or 2 activities, but you have elongated involvement, that looks just as great to us as if a student has 10 involvements in activities. So keep that in mind. It's not a hindrance. That's who you are, and that defines you. So if that's something that you've taken advantage of, you have the opportunity to do so, put it down there. Now, you are limited to 20 activities. So we're going to limit you in the application of how much you can indicate in that area. But again, provide as much context of your involvement, whether it's sustained involvement or what have you. But no clear rule on that. Too many is too many. Okay, that's who you are. And so you've had the opportunities to be involved in that. And so talk about that with us.
Very good. And then just as a reminder from a few questions back, conversely with that, if you don't have a long list of extracurriculars, mention why that might be. As we mentioned, you might have other circumstances in your life that are taking up your time. It could be caring for other family or other things that we're not even listing right now, a myriad of things. So keep that in mind too. You may not have a formal list of you were in this club and you were president of something else, but you definitely have your own unique experiences to bring to the table to your application. So don't underestimate those either. All right, everyone. Well, we have reached the end of our event. So Tim, I'd like to give you a moment to list any last comments that you'd like to give advice tonight.
Yeah, just again, enjoy this process. There's a lot of resources that are there to assist you through this process. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are here to work with you to help you. We offer one-on-one appointments on our website. If you want to schedule a 30-minute appointment with myself or your specific regional advisor, we highly welcome and encourage that. And again, I want to encourage you, please check your emails. I cannot emphasize that enough. Check your emails throughout this entire process because we will be communicating with you in that process. And I want to wish you all the best in this process. Congratulations on making it to this stage.
Absolutely. And what a wonderful night this has been. Thank you so much, Tim, for joining me here and your wonderful knowledge that you're always welcome and always so welcoming and sharing with everyone. And those things that Tim just mentioned, I did just quickly drop over a couple of links there in the chat, as well as the rest of our Fast Fingers behind the scenes. So you'll find the events page listed there. That's also where you will find the instant replays as soon as those are available. Also, to reach out to us and reach your advisor, you can go ahead and click over there as well. There's a contact us, so you can reach out and get an appointment and just overall kind of get a feel for who you may be speaking to. Their pictures are listed there too, so you can see who you start to connect with early on. One last little plug, make sure you take a picture or jot down the information that you see on your screen, and we definitely hope to see you at a future event. My name is Ricky Hill, and I am the e-recruiter. It is always such a blast to be here with you guys, and we are looking so forward to meeting you very, very soon. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you soon. Have a great night.